In this video, we're crushing Russian tanks and trying to figure out where all these vehicles go. Alright folks, here's what we're looking at going into turn 6. The Russians are attacking Kravtsovka for the third time. I'm moving into Naval Sector Bravo uncontested in preparation for an amphibious assault into Vladivostok. But first we have to win in Kravtsovka, so here we go. Here we are at Kravtsovka. So what we can see here is that the enemy just holds that middle sector and then one that's just off screen to the top right, that one going to Dongjing. They immediately start, they mass their tanks and they're approaching my sector over in Vladivostok, but my plan here is to just move in, sweep the enemy out of this sector, and then contain them in the sector to the northeast. So that's what I'm doing here. I've also finally figured out how to sync orders, or sync queue orders. So I've laid down a lot of smoke. I'm moving my infantry into Charlie because they're going to push out the infantry that are almost surely there. And sure enough, they have a bunch of motostrelki that are there. Now these are not good. This is part of their border unit, which is kind of their lower quality infantry. So you'll see I don't have a lot of my Chinese infantry in there, but they hold out for a long time, as you're going to see. Of course, I'm recording all of this in post because, well, my last audio was unusable, unfortunately. So you can see they've got a bunch of command helicopters and then regular helicopters moving in through the north, but they also don't have really any air defense artillery. They have some man pads, but that's about it. So I'm able to bring in my J5s and try and attack their helicopters. It's not the optimal tool. I said J5s, I meant J711s. It's not the optimal tool to do that because, you know, they're fast movers and they're not going to be able to hit the helicopters as effectively as other helicopters or self-propelled anti-air guns, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I bring in my bombers here. I had kind of forgot that they have napalm instead of high explosives. Napalm isn't the best thing around, but you know, we do what we can, so it's causing them to panic. You can see that my UBE are still hanging on against the Panzer Strela. So they're fighting it out. And then in the north, they are not really moving out of their area. They're moving some Mi-8 MTV helicopters down through that pass towards the area that's held by just a few of the units I have. I don't really have a lot of people there. Some recon, some light infantry. Those are actually the only infantry units that are available in the campaign at this time without me spending some additional points. But they're slowly moving that guy, that command helicopter, over. I'm going to try and shoot it down. I believe I'm unsuccessful. Their tanks are doing a decent job of destroying my infantry as I try and move them in. So this is not the best play on my part. I definitely could have either smoked the tanks out so that I could move my infantry in close and then use those anti-tank weapons that they have. I've done something better, but we're handling them. These are, again, not the best tanks, not the best infantry that the enemy has. So we're going to see stronger forces as the campaign goes on. So it's also very important that I maintain the units that I do have now. Our recon are just hanging out up there. The UBE still hanging on in the face of multiple T-34s, 35 motostrelkis, but they're about done. And yet we have a bunch of dismounts running past the napalm in the road. And then a bunch of kind of light tanks reinforcing Charlie. They clearly no longer hold that area. They've moved a command vehicle to Delta, but that's not really of concern to me. That doesn't allow them reinforcements. It's not super important. I put my tanks online, start sweeping up towards that sector, while also prepping the objective with some high explosive mortars. And now I finally realize, hey, instead of sending my infantry straight into the jaws of the enemy, why don't I come around, flank them with my tanks, hit them from the side. At this point, I noticed this giant column of just an incredible amount of tanks, and I don't know what the enemy AI ends up doing with these, because they don't really become an issue at any point in the campaign. I don't know if the AI was just worried about losing points because now they're down on destruction points, and they probably can't afford it. They're about to lose more because my guys are just tearing up their T-34s. So those guys are moving in. The enemy has made barely any move on the infantry and Foxtrot, and now they're starting to tank the tanks that started to encroach on their base. But a lot of helicopters, they don't have a lot of good anti-tank weapons over there. Now we got more helicopters. I'm not even really sure what they're doing. My ZTZ taking some rocket helicopter rockets to the chin there. That's not so terrible. I decided to move these tanks up to make sure that there's no more enemy in Charlie. Of course, there are some enemy in Charlie. There's just some of that infantry there. That command helicopter trying to come in and land in Charlie, but that's not a good idea because I got two tanks staring at it. And again, we had that big column of armored vehicles that just don't really come into play. I feel like we see the first of them coming down through the mountain pass right here. But they're not going to come into play soon enough to make a difference in this battle for the enemy AI. I could be bringing in a lot more units based on the point float that I have, but there's not really any real reason to do that. I mean, I have to conserve my forces for the rest of the campaign. It is good to give them experience so that I'll have better units moving forward. Here we can see me doing something that I should have done right at the beginning when I realized how many helicopters they were using, which is bringing in some self-propelled anti-air guns. You gotta say God bless the Motoskrelli for trying whatever they're doing here. Tanks are chasing down those helicopters, and we destroyed the command helicopter here, which is good. One less command helicopter for them to use later in the campaign. Okay, so the armored column has shown back up, and they're getting all unspooled over my recon unit. which is, of course, of no consequence. I feel like the enemy AI probably knows that there was a unit there, couldn't quite figure it out, so they waste time doing that. I'm sending my bombers, although they had lost sight of them, the enemy, so they're not shooting at anything, but that's alright. Enemy is, at this point, it's down to 175. So now it's just a matter of time before they run out of destruction points. The enemy column has finally arrived in Charlie. But I was there first, and I'm waiting for them. At this point, it's just all just about over. These tanks are gonna jam it out as the enemy comes down to their last 70 points. We're gonna watch this little tank engagement here. This game has great sound design. Sometimes you don't notice it unless you're zoomed in. But I find those moments really just nice. I think these are the last kills of the match. As the enemy tries to race to reinforce, but they just can't get it done. And then that's the end of it. So it looks like we lost all of our reconnaissance, which is bad. That's definitely something I was lacking during the match. So I'm going to have to buy some of those as soon as possible. But you can see the enemy lost quite a bit of infantry and vehicles. So that's about it this time. It looks like the situation is such that we've got enemy reinforcements coming down from the north, but also from those provinces along the coast. And then, of course, still a lot of enemy in Vladivostok in those bordering areas. So I'm going to have to figure out, how do I build up forces without allowing the enemy to do too much? So, this has been Rage with Travis. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time.